afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the Ontario Association of Architects and our 2024 Council, I would like to thank you for joining us virtually for the OAA Annual General Meeting of Members. As a reminder, OAA Council made a decision to decouple the meeting from the OAA's annual conference and host it as an event on its own in a virtual setting following the OAA Conference of 2022. This decision was based on our desire to offer a consistent approach and equal access, as well as to provide a uniform approach to member participation. This decision was consistent with the feedback received from members and resulted in a successful AGM last year in the new format. My name is Settimo Vilardi, and I'm honored to be the OAA President for 2024. I hope that when you first joined us online, you were able to take a moment to see the names of our newly licensed members scrolling across the screen. We are so very proud of these individuals and congratulate them on achieving their license. We can all appreciate the hard work and dedication that goes into reaching this milestone. I will begin today's meeting by acknowledging the land on which we are collectively situated. For millennia, the place we call Ontario has been inhabited by Indigenous peoples and nations who have been the stewards of the land. We honor the rich cultural and natural landscape of our buildings and spaces are part of, and the connection to the land the Indigenous peoples have valued since time immemorial. We are grateful for Indigenous knowledge that guides us, and we commit to build in harmony with the land and create sustainable spaces for generations to come. I invite you to take a moment of reflection to acknowledge our shared responsibility to address past and present injustices and provide a space for Indigenous knowledge and worldviews to shape the architectural landscape of Turtle Island. Before we move to the business of the meeting, I would like to ask OAA's Executive Director, Christy Doyle, to take a moment to introduce members of the 2024 Council. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Like Seth, I'm very pleased to be here today and joined by members virtually from across the province and, in fact, across the continent. It is my great pleasure today to introduce the members of our 2024 Council. First, Lulua Alkasawat, Bill Birdsell, Jim Batici, Kimberly Fawcett-Smith, Christina Carney, Natasha Cricken, Jenny LaFrance, Michelle Longlade, Laura McKendrick, Elaine Mintz, Greg Redden, Anna Richter, Christiana Schumann, Susan Spiegel, Ted Watson, Ted Wilson, Thomas Young, Marek Zawadzki, and finally, OAA President Settimo Vilardi. At this time, I'd like to recognize the efforts of these individuals and the hard work that they perform as members of OAA Council. And in addition to serving on Council, they also spend a considerable amount of time working with OAA committees in partnership with other volunteer members, which carry out the work of the association. Thank you again to our councillors for their dedication to the profession. Before I hand the screen or the floor back to Seth, I'd like to remind everyone that the agenda and formal procedures for today's meeting were circulated to the membership in an electronic mailing on March 14th. I hope everyone has had a chance to review these procedures in advance of the meeting. Motions to be voted on during the meeting were also circulated with the agenda. And with that, I'd like to remind that the meeting cannot vote on matters that were not contained in the agenda, and therefore new motions or resolutions cannot be accepted today during the meeting. As always, though, we are open to receiving thoughts and suggestions from members under other business on the agenda, which will occur following the President's address. Anyone wishing to provide comments at that time is requested to use the Q&A or question and answer function that appears at the bottom of your screen. The Q&A function can also be used to ask a question pertaining to any of the items that are presented today. I will be monitoring the Q&A area and will bring forward these questions as appropriate during the course of the meeting. Technical questions can also be entered here and will be answered in writing directly to the individual from the technical team. The meeting is being recorded and will be available for viewing on the OAA's YouTube channel at a later date. For the purpose of the meeting minutes, this meeting is being recorded verbatim, and any questions asked will be attributed to the member accordingly. So please be sure that you use your full name in the Q&A area if it's not attached to your Zoom account. At this point, we'd like to take a moment to make sure that everyone has had a chance to review the online voting process. So together, we're going to conduct a quick test and a sample vote. So I'd ask everyone that's eligible to vote to please go to the chat function. And in the chat, there is a link, secure election buddy link that I'd like everybody to click on and basically open up or download that window. So this should open a web page for you where the voting for the meeting is available. And we ask that you keep this window open on your device for the rest of the meeting. The motions that are to be voted on today will be presented on that screen at the appropriate time. When the president calls the vote on a motion during the meeting, our virtual voting system will enable registrants who are eligible to vote to choose one of the following options. Either yes, I approve, no, I reject, or you may also abstain. It's at that time that you will cast your vote. I'd like to take a quick moment to go through this process together to make sure that everybody's able to vote. And so by now you should have clicked on the link that appeared in the chat, and that window should be open on your screen, either in a second window or on a second tab. If you've got a split screen, you should be seeing the two of them together. So if you go to that screen, you should see that there is a test vote open. And the first step in this process is to validate your eligibility to vote. So please enter your access key. Your access key is your OAA email of record. And this is the email that we have on file in the database that you have provided for us. So again, access key is your email of record. So please enter that. And then you will also need to enter a password. And this year's password is AGM 2024, AGM in caps. So this should validate your eligibility to vote. And you should in fact now see a motion that says cake is the best dessert. So please vote now. I'm going to give everybody just a couple of minutes to make sure to go through those steps and to have a chance to vote. And I'll ask our technical team and Sherry to let me know if we've had a I think there was a quick issue with the link not being live, but I think the link is now live. There we go. Excellent. While we're doing that, I would like to remind as well that voting will be conducted on the premise of honor and integrity of the individuals involved, notwithstanding the virtual meeting has been set up so that only voting members will in fact have the option to vote. All other meeting attendees will not attempt to cast a vote in any manner. The results of each vote will be tabulated in real time and announced to the meeting before moving on to the next item of business. I can also confirm that no proxies for this meeting have been received for today. So unless I hear otherwise, I'm not sure. I'll just quickly check with Sherry if I can move on.
The motion has passed.
Excellent, thank you. It is my pleasure to reintroduce OAA President Settimo Vilardi. Set.
Thanks, Christy. This is my second one-year term as OAA President, working with the other mentioned as I started the AGM. It's been such a positive experience and a huge honor to help lead the association's governing council, which brings together diverse members of our profession as well as representatives of the public. We make decisions in the public interest, and I'm very mindful that these decisions can have a substantial effect not only on the practice of architecture, but also on the individual careers of members. None of us on council ever make these choices lightly, and we always keep the OAA's vision and mandate foremost in our minds. We care about how architecture is regulated. Those of you joining us today from all across Ontario also care about how the profession and how it is regulated. I know this because we're all busy people juggling deadlines and responsibilities, and you all have still made this time this afternoon to join us and your peers for this AGM. So while I have your captive attention, hopefully, and a receptive audience, I wanted to remind you that you can take your interest and involvement in the OAA even further and consider participating in the upcoming council elections, which hit full stride this fall. Our elections are based on geographic districts across the province. For 2025, there will be 5 seats for elections or re-election. These are Eastern, Northern, Western, City of Toronto, and Province of Ontario. However, it's important to know that councillors do not represent members of their district. Instead, they govern on behalf of the public interest. This is part of our privilege and responsibility of a self-regulating, self-governing body, which our profession has been entrusted with. 6 or 7 times a year, councillors come together at the OAA headquarters in Toronto or join meetings virtually to realize the goals set out in our 5-year strategic plan. We work with the OAA committees and association staff on activities ranging from developing educational programming and expected standards of practice to enforcing the Architects Act. We want diversity in all aspects of background and perspective to be truly reflective of Ontarians. So if you care about our profession and its responsibility to the public, and if you're someone who can focus on big picture, consider regulatory issues, and bring passion, clear thinking, and a desire to collaborate, then I ask you to learn more about the elections process. If that's you or someone you know, the OAA is sending all members the nomination forms in October. In the meantime, you can find out more about the OAA website. You can find more about this on the OAA website at www.on.ca /about/council, or email me directly at president@oaa.on.ca with any questions. I run a really busy full service practice in Windsor. I have an active family and personal life, and I have also been put in the hours on council. I know the commitment involved, but I also promise you that if you run and are elected to council, your time, effort, and contributions will be meaningful and allow us to continue to do our important work to protect the public interest. Also, the OAA has a very competent and dedicated staff, and they are truly amazing, so knowledgeable and dynamic. They carry out the day-to-day activities of our association and are invaluable support to council, helping manage the workload so you can use your time most effectively and efficiently. I can assure you that it is possible to continue to run a practice successfully and still contribute to the OAA, as I've been doing so for almost 5 years now, 3 as a VP and just over 1.5 years as president. If council seems too large a commitment at this time, you can still consider applying for an OAA committee this summer or to your local architectural society's executive. I guarantee, having done all of these things, the experiences will be rewarding and enjoyable. And with that, let's return to the business of the AGM and specifically to celebrate the achievements of a number of our special members. The next item for business is to recognize those of us who over the last year have been marked 50 years of membership with the OAA. On behalf of the association and the profession, I'm so pleased to recognize 8 individuals who have recently reached this milestone. The full bios and photos for these members will be available to view on the OAA website later in the spring. Our first member of longstanding is John Hicks. John is an esteemed architect with a rich educational background, holding a Bachelor of Architecture from Iowa State University, a Master of Architecture from the University of Pennsylvania, and a Master of Arts from Cambridge University. Through his career, he has shown a deep commitment to climate design, energy efficiency, and integration of human life with nature. John's significant contributions to the field of architecture, particularly in Ontario, include projects like the Provident House, Ontario's pioneering active solar house in 1974, and the Alpha Double Envelope Solar House, which received an OAA award. They stand as testaments to his innovative approach. John's work extends beyond residential projects to include community and conservation efforts, such as the Ottawa Solar Community, the Gower Park Place, and the Quetico Park Visitor Center, the latter receiving an OAA award and a Governor General's Award. His dedication to sustainable design is also evident in his teaching career. having led courses on climate and architecture at prestigious institutions worldwide, including the University of Toronto, North Carolina State School of Design, and Cambridge University in England. A renowned writer, John authored The Glass House, exploring the history of horticultural environments. His recent focus on tropical architecture showcases his ability to design structures that naturally modulate environmental forces without relying on artificial cooling, further solidifying his reputation as a pioneer in sustainable architecture. Our next new member of longstanding is Peter E. Peltikoff. Peter, serving as partner emeritus at ARC and Petroff Architects, has been a pivotal figure in the firm's growth since having joined in 1983. His career at Petroff is marked by his management of a complex portfolio of projects and client groups focused on boosting the firm's presence both domestically and internationally. Through his tenure, Peter has cultivated enduring professional relationships with some of Canada's leading developers, a testament to his dedication and expertise in the field of architecture. Prior to joining Petroff, Peter gained valuable experience at Crane and Bulk Architects from 1969 to 1983, where he honed his skills in handling complex architectural projects. This position followed a formative year at John B. Parkin and Associates from 1968 to 1969, setting the foundation for his illustrious career. Through his career, Peter has shown exceptional leadership in directing large-scale, mixed-use projects across Canada, which have not only contributed significantly to the nation's built environment, but have also earned him industry-wide recognition. His collaborative efforts with global design teams have led to several award-winning international developments, including the Donghae Commercial Capital and Yingdu Commercial Tower, both buildings in Shanghai, China. Peter's academic journey began at Ryerson University of Technology, now the Toronto Metropolitan University, where he graduated in 1964, followed by further studies at the University of Toronto, graduating in 1968. Our third member of longstanding is Paul W. Roth. Paul says his road to architecture was almost accidental. During a casual meeting with a guidance counselor toward the end of his high school career, he realized that his strengths in art and math could align well with a career in architecture. Without other concrete plans, he decided to apply to the University of Toronto School of Architecture and was accepted. This marked the beginning of a fulfilling career in a profession in which he continues to find joy. After graduating in 1970, he briefly worked with Victor J. Hendricks, architect. Together with John Knibb and then established Roth Knibb Architects, a multifaceted practice involved in such projects as libraries, churches, commercial buildings, long-term care facilities, and residential developments. Following retirement of the firm in 2012, Paul opted to maintain his professional license and take an occasional architectural project as they arose. 12 years down the line, he remains actively engaged with a waiting list of clients wanting his expertise. While working on a variety of projects, Paul always preferred working closely with clients who will personally inhabit the space he designs. As expected, the preference often led to commissions for single-family homes and cottages. The satisfaction he derives from fostering healthy relationships with clients, many of whom have become friends, has become a driving force in his continued dedication to his work. Within the framework of the OAA, Paul served as a member and chair of the practice committee for a decade. Additionally, he held roles as a member of the chair of engineers, architects, and building officials, or EBO, for 10 years, along with contributing to the registration committee over a number of years. Recognized for his contributions, he was honored as a fellow of the Royal Architectural Institute of Canada in 2000 and led the Southwest Ontario Committee of College of Fellows for 6 years. Paul continues to enjoy his passion for drawing, painting, gardening, and travel. The next new member of longstanding is John Berkeley Stark. A graduate of the University of Toronto School of Architecture, John began his career at a Toronto firm before becoming an architect. In 1973, he co-founded Stark Temporale Architects with Alex Temporale, marking the beginning of a distinguished career that has seen him as a partner in various firms over the years. For the past 25 years, John has focused on designing recreational homes along the waterfront of Georgian Bay, showcasing his passion for creating elegant and functional spaces. His dedication extends beyond his profession, evident in his roles as president of the Mississauga Board of Trade and campaign chair for the United Way in the region of Peel. As well, president and chair of the board of directors for the Georgian Bay Land Trust, for which he remains an advisor, primarily involved in the fundraising efforts. Aside from his professional and community commitments, John finds joy and immense pride in his family life, being married with 3 children and 4 grandchildren. Despite his full-time work, he cherishes his summers on Georgian Bay, where he continues to work and find solace in his island. Our 5th new member of longstanding is Carl H. Stevens. Carl is a founding partner of Stevens Burgess Architects, SBA Limited, and has practiced within the architectural, urban design, and planning industries for more than 50 years, providing oversight and due diligence to the firm's architectural projects. With his guiding expertise, his firm has undertaken community plans across the Canadian Arctic, including the city of Yellowknife. Over the past 2 decades, Carl has worked extensively throughout Asia and on large-scale redevelopment projects and new towns. Closer to home, SBA played a comprehensive role in the development of Toronto's One Financial Place, overseeing the project from the initial land assembly through to the urban design of the site, including the integration with the city's interconnectivity. As a founding partner of Project Planning Global, PPG, Carl has prepared residential development projects, community plans, and official plans and zoning bylaws. He has recommended development strategies to private investors, municipalities, federal and provincial governments, and investment corporations. Some of his assignments have included development strategies for communities across Ontario, Nunavut, the Northwest Territories, and recently, by invitation, to the Haitian Island Development Plan for the Government of China. Our final new member of longstanding is Alexander Louis Temporale. Alex is a renowned expert in the field of heritage conservation, downtown revitalization, and urban design, dedicated to safeguarding the historical essence of communities while fostering the development and distinctive character. As a co-founder of Stark Temporale Architects, he played a pivotal role in numerous restoration projects and heritage conservation efforts, leaving a significant impact on the architectural field. In 1982, he founded his own firm, which under his guidance has witnessed notable success in key urban vitalization studies. His leadership has led to such contributions as the Oakville Urban Design and Streetscape Guidelines, which have guided community development for more than 2 decades. He also led the rejuvenation of Alexander Homestead site, which reinvigorated the Halton Region Museum and enhanced its sustainability. Throughout his illustrious career, Alex's work has been recognized and celebrated, earning him an esteemed designation of Fellow of the Royal Architectural Institute of Canada in 2007. His portfolio boasts a variety of award-winning projects, including the Lionhead Golf Clubhouse in Brampton, the Emerald Center in Mississauga, and the Catherine Harding Waterfront Estate in Mississauga, which was honored with the Lieutenant Governor's Award for Excellence in Conservation. Beyond his architectural pursuits, Alex has contributed his expertise to the advisory committee and authored various insightful articles on design. Recognized as an expert in urban design and heritage architecture by both the OMB and the OLT, he tirelessly advocates for the harmonious blend of historical legacy with contemporary development, ensuring each project enriches the narrative of its community. Alex's steadfast commitment to heritage preservation and sustainable urban growth underscores his deep influence on shaping the built environment for future generations. Again, thank you and congratulations to these 6 individuals for their perseverance, dedication, and long-standing contributions to our profession. I now call on Executive Director Christy Doyle to take a moment to also recognize OAA past councillors whose terms on council ended in 2023. Over to you, Christy.
Thanks so much, Seth. On behalf of the OAA and our governing council, I am pleased to take this opportunity to acknowledge the contribution of 4 past councillors, architect Farida Abu Bakari, intern architect representative Ida Badri, who, by the way, is now a licensed architect, architect Dio Baquette, and also architect Clayton Payer. These individuals have made important contributions to the OAA and to the profession during their time on council. We will be presenting them with a framed certificate of appreciation and have invited them to join us at the conference in Niagara Falls in May to receive their certificate. I'd like to take just a couple of minutes to share a few words about each of these individuals. Farida Abu Bakari served on council for one term beginning in 2021. Farida was always very insightful and very thoughtful in her contributions. She quickly became a valued member of council for the relatively short time that she was a councillor. Farida jumped right in, and as council representative to the Communications Committee, to the Comprehensive Education Committee, and also Public Interest Review Committee, and also as an OAA trustee. Farida demonstrated her deep dedication in her efforts to address equity, diversity, and inclusion. Farida worked with great passion with the interns, serving as chair of the Interns Committee as well. She was integral in the development of the OAA's intern survey and also the OAA's now biennial demographic survey. Her knowledge and passion was invaluable as a member of the EDI, Truth and Reconciliation Working Group. We would like to truly congratulate Farida and her family, as she is now a proud mom of a beautiful baby girl, and wish her all the best in the future. Now I'd like to recognize Ida Badri. Ida served as the OAA's intern architect representative on council for 2023. I am very pleased to mention again that Ida has recently completed her registration process and is now a licensed architect. Congratulations, Ida. During her time on council, Ida contributed in a thoughtful way, providing a fresh perspective on the many issues that were discussed and debated last year. Ida served on the Interns Committee, where she continues to serve now, and was key in the development of the new mentorship directory. She enthusiastically participated as well in bringing together last year's Meet the OAA virtual event. On behalf of council and the association, we extend our sincere appreciation to Ida and wish her continued success in her professional life. I'd now like to say a couple of words about Dio Paquette. Dio, a longtime volunteer on OAA committees, joined the OAA Council in 2021. His previous council work served the OAA well, as Dio was able to hit the ground running and was assigned as a council representative to the Experience Requirements Committee, the Building Committee, Registration Committee, and also the Practice Resource Committee. During his second term on council, Dio was elected by his fellow councillors as Vice President Practice and took on the role of chair of the Practice Resource Committee. Dio's work on council extended through to the OAA's Joint Liaison Committee with the Ontario General Contractors Association, and as well as contributions to the Policy Advocacy Coordination Team. This past year, Dio served as chair of the Registration Committee and continued to provide his insights to council on many different topics. Passionate in his views, Dio has shown his dedication to causes related to licensure and is a strong advocate for architecture in Ontario. We wish him all the best in his future endeavors. And finally, I'd like to recognize Clayton Payer. Clayton joined council back in 2022, where he immediately became active and as an insightful member of council. In his first year, Clayton took on the role of council representative to the Complaints Committee, as well as serving as an OAA trustee and also liaison to the Ottawa Regional Society of Architects. In his second year on council, Clayton served on the Interns Committee, as well as the Policy Advocacy Coordination Team. Policy Advisory Coordination Team, where he demonstrated his passion for the profession and was a great contributor to important issues relating to government policy, which have a direct impact on the profession and the public interest. Thank you, Clayton, for your contribution, and again, all the best for the future. I will turn the floor back over to Seth.
Thank you again, Christy. On a more somber note, it's with great sadness that I would ask everyone to please observe a moment of silence to recognize those members and past members who have passed away since our last meeting. Before we move on, I'd also like to take a moment to recognize our dear friend and colleague, Marguerite Chan, who passed away so suddenly earlier this year. Many of you may have known Margarita as she was a long-term employee of Pro-Demnity Insurance Company. Marg joined the OAA in April 1988 as secretary. 6 months later, she started as an assistant to the general manager of the OAA's indemnity plan, now Pro-Demnity, playing a key role in the plan's growth, development, and transformation to a full-fledged insurance company. She was a chartered insurance professional, CIP, who served certificate of practice holders in the early days and was instrumental in establishing enduring relationships with Lloyd's of London, where she served as a corporate secretary for over 35 years. Our deepest condolences to Marguerite's family and our friends and colleagues at Pro-Demnity. Thank you. I will now call this meeting to order for the formal business section. No amendments to the agenda have been identified, and therefore the agenda today will stand as circulated. The next item for business is confirmation of the synopsis of the minutes of the 133rd Annual General Meeting, which was held on May 3rd, 2023. I will now ask if there have been any errors or omissions identified. We will pause for about a moment to allow for feedback. Please use the ask a question function.
That I'm not seeing any questions. Sorry.
No problem.
I think we can probably move on, Seth, because I don't see any questions. If anybody happens to put anything about the synopsis, we can circle back, but I think we're good.
Okay. So motion one will be acceptance of the synopsis of the minutes of the 133rd meeting of the members. Be it moved that the synopsis of the minutes of the 133rd meeting held on May 3rd, 2023 be accepted as circulated. Seeing no corrections identified, I will move forward with the motion and voting. For the purposes of efficiency, we have arranged for movers and seconders in advance. The OAA member, Tone Driesen of Ottawa, has agreed to move the motion to accept the synopsis as circulated, a copy of which was sent to members on March 14, 2024, and OAA member Emily Ann Featherstone of St. George has seconded the motion. The motion appears on the screen, and as noted by Christy at the onset, please cast your vote when the voting option appears. I will now ask all members eligible to vote to cast their vote. We will pause for about a minute to allow time for votes to be casted.
Seth, the motion has passed.
Great, thanks, Christy. The next item for business is business arising from the minutes. Is there any other business arising from the minutes of the May 23rd AGM? We'll pause for a moment here to allow questions to be entered into the ask a question function.
That I'm not seeing any questions. I did want to just mention though that if anybody, there are a couple of questions in there, but I think we will, they're not pertaining necessarily to the synopsis, so we'll deal with them at the end.
Sounds like a good plan. Thanks.
Okay.
So I'm going to move on to the next item for business, which is motion number 2, the appointment of the auditor for 2024. So be it moved that the firm of Grant Thornton LLP Chartered Accountants be appointed as auditors for the Ontario Association of Architects for 2024.
Seth, the motion has passed.
Okay. I should have mentioned that motion was moved. We pre-arranged it, and it was moved by Deborah Wang of Toronto and was seconded by Yvonne Agnes Yisum of Kitchener. So thank you for moving that and for the votes. The next slide we're going to talk about is motion number 3, which is the passage of amendment to the OA bylaws revised 2022 Schedule A. The motion is be it moved that the amendments to the OA bylaws revised in 2022 Schedule A as circulated with the agenda for the meeting be confirmed by the membership. Schedule A in the bylaw, A is within the bylaws and has been amended to reflect the increase of fees of 4% for 2024. So in accordance with the Architects Act, bylaws made by council are subject to confirmation at the annual general meeting of members. All members will have received a copy of the amended bylaws in Schedule A, which was approved by council December 1st, 2023. Our member Jane Burgess of Toronto has moved the motion, and Peggy Chu of Toronto has seconded the motion to approve the amendments to the OAA bylaw revised 2022 Schedule A. I will ask all members who are eligible to vote to cast their vote. We'll pause for about a minute to allow everyone to cast their vote. Thanks.
That the motion has passed.
Great. Thanks, Christine. The next item of business is the appointment of our honorary membership for honorary membership. Honorary members are a class of persons whose interests are related to those of the association as defined in Regulation 27 under the Architects Act as persons who have been rendered to the architectural profession signal or valuable service or who have scrupulously upheld the objects of the association. This year, one individual, Kevin McIntosh, has been nominated for honorary membership. The name of this individual was contained in the official agenda emailed to members on March 14th, 2024. I would like to recognize OAA member Ana Francisca de la Mora Campos, who has been kind enough to share their nomination for Kevin McIntosh and move a motion to elect him as honorary member in the following pre-recorded message.
For his long-standing volunteer contributions to the Toronto Society of Architects and the architectural community at large, Kevin McIntosh's commitment to the service and betterment of the profession merits the honor of OAA honorary membership. Kevin has been one of the TSA's longest service volunteers, and in his 20-plus years of involvement, Kevin has shaped many of the TSA's initiatives connecting architectural professionals with the general public, including helping to kickstart both the TSA Walking Tours program and the TSA Connect networking series, both now staple offerings at the Society. Often the non-architect in the room, Kevin's unique skill sets and perspective helped initiate a new chapter for the TSA, one that was more accessible, modern, and public-facing. Beyond Kevin's contributions to the TSA's long-term sustainability and success, he has also been significantly involved in other architectural organizations, building a more welcoming industry, elevating emerging voices, and advocating for the role architects can play in improving our city. Through Kevin's dedication and enthusiastic support coordinating behind the scenes, he has contributed to so many of the architectural community's events, resources, and initiatives, helping to bridge the gap between the industry and the public. Ana Francisca de la Mora moved that Kevin McIntosh be elected honorary member of the Ontario Association of Architects. Thank you.
I understand that OAA member Rania Mata of Toronto has seconded the motion. So once again, I will now ask all members eligible to vote to cast their vote. Again, we'll pause for about a minute to allow everybody time to vote.
Set, I can confirm that the motion has passed.
Great, thanks for that, Christy, and congratulations and welcome, Kevin. The next item for business in the 2020 is the 2023 annual report, which was posted to the OAA website in March. It was mentioned in the previous OAA newsletters about the AGM, and we're also sharing a link in the chat if you haven't had a chance to review it yet. If you haven't read it, I highly encourage checking it out. OAA staff completely redesigned the annual report this year. It has a clean, simple graphics and layout, as well as a more condensed focus on the regulatory aspects of the association and its activities as they fall within our 5-year strategic plan. Last year, the OAA immediate past president, Susan Spiegel, introduced our annual report by noting these documents capture a snapshot of the 12 months of activity, but in reality, the work of the OAA is continuous. Over my nearly 1.5 years as president, I try to build on the work of my predecessors and the councillors of the day. And I also that when my term is done, successive presidents and council will continue to work and carry the baton forward. In any case, I'm not going to talk too much about the annual report now, as I will touch on some of the content towards the end of the AGM when I deliver my more substantial address. I will say I appreciate how clearly it outlines the 4 foundational goals of the strategic plan, which are regulatory leadership, governance and operations, member competency, and public education. It also underscores the OAA's commitment to address 2 very important environmental and social governance items. These include climate action and equality, diversity, and inclusion, as well as our commitment to reconciliation. It does this by highlighting the breadth and depth of the OAA's programs and services, ranging from our public awareness sponsorship and its scholarships to act enforcement and continuing education initiatives, to our practice hotline that fielded more than 1,900 calls and emails from public and members of our association. Although there were some unique challenges, and we'll talk a bit more about these later today, the year of 2023 was purposeful, a positive one for both the association and the profession. Our annual report encapsulates some of this, and again, I encourage you to take a look. If you have any questions regarding the annual report, please ask them now in the Q&A box. I'll pause for about 30 seconds to allow any questions or input, and then we'll keep going.
That I'm not seeing any questions, but again, if something happens to come in, we'll circle back at the end, okay?
All right, thanks again. I would now like to ask our OAA Senior Vice President and Treasurer, Ted Wilson, to present the 2023 audited financial reports.
Thank you, Settimo. I would like to begin by thanking OAA management and council for their diligent and collective efforts in continuing to realize a strong financial position for the organization. In the words of the OAA's auditors, Grant Thornton LLP, the financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the OAA as of November 30th, 2023, its results of operations and its cash flows for the year ended as of that date are in accordance with the Canadian accounting standards for non-profit organizations. As a context for that, the OAA Regulation 27, Clause 55, lists 17 requirements from the Nonprofit Corporations Act that apply to the governance and operation of the OAA. Specifically, items 68 through 84 refer to financial matters, including annual reporting and the role of the auditor. So that's just to provide a bit of context. In terms of financial growth this year, the following items are highlighted from the auditor's report. On page 3, there is a presentation of the statement of operations. In the revenue category, OAA annual membership increased from 5.16 million to 5.195 million as a result of membership growth. Page 4 of the report presents the statement of changes in members' equity. Overall, equity increased from 52.22 million to 61.86 million. Now, equity of the OAA is held in the following categories as shown in the statement. They include these 6 items: the legal reserve, Pro-Demnity insurance company investment, major capital reserve, operating reserve, property and equipment, and unrestricted funds. Now, the majority of the equity increase for 2023 is attributed to revenue realized through the OAA's investment in Pro-Demnity insurance company. Note 5 of the report provides more detail. The investment increased from 39.1 million to 48.2 million this year. The reported information from the prior year, 2022, is noted in the report as being restated. This has been done to respond to new accounting policies introduced in 2023 by the International Financial Reporting Standards, IFRS organization, specifically IFRS 9 and 17. These policies are designed to increase the comparability and transparency of reported information across the insurance industry with regard to metrics including risk, the period which a particular group of insurance contracts are held, and also profitability. Now, for the reserves, the three in particular that I previously mentioned, the categories as follows are now the focus of a plan by council to top these up in alignment with respective reserved fund policies. And I'll just give a brief summary at this point on what those are. Legal reserve at 0.29 million is a reserve set up to allow for funding related to address discipline matters and the enforcement of the Architects Act. The second reserve is the major capital reserve at 1.57 million. Policy related to it aligns this amount with recommendations from the current Building Reserve Fund study prepared by Keller Engineering in 2021, which is subject to a refresh and update every 5 years. And the operating reserve at 1.36 million, policy stating that it is an amount required equivalent to maintaining operations for 6 to 12 months. For 2023, the operating costs for 12 months were 7.5 million. The other two remaining items in terms of investment include property and equipment at 6.9 million, as noted in the members' equity category in the statement of finance position. Note 4 in the report provides more detail with respect to property and equipment. And unrestricted members' equity at 3.5 million, available as a contingency during the year for items such as unbudgeted expenditures or unanticipated revenue fluctuations. So I'll pause here to note that the 2023 financial statements are available on the OAA website and to offer the opportunity for questions entered into the Q&A. And I'll ask Christy when she's had a chance to review if there's anything to respond to.
Ted, I'm going to jump right in. I do have one question. It's from member John Doris. And he has asked the question, how does the Treasurer's report justify or demonstrate the need to increase the fees voted on previously? So I assume he's referring to the bylaw change that was just approved. So again, how does the Treasurer's report justify the need to increase the fees voted on previously?
So I'm looking at Christy. So the 4% increase, I would respond with respect to the 4% increase being a number that has been applied with respect to CPI, so that we're able to contextualize it relative to general increases in costs that are being incurred. That's a primary driver for the determination of that number. The other items I can talk about a little bit further as I get into the way in which we're allocating funds to address both the reserves and our existing mortgage payments that we continue to manage as well. That combination of drivers influence the decision about the increase.
Okay. Thank you, Ted. I don't have any other. Oh, here we go. Just a second. Question from Rafid Cousteau. Does the OAA landscape project include a finance statement? Not sure what's meant by finance statement, but perhaps budget. Yeah.
Well, we do have a budget. I am going to speak to the competition in a minute. For 2024, the amounts related to that have been approved by council, and as part of the reporting that's done on an annual basis for 24, 25, and 26, there will be amounts that are itemized with respect to the expenditures related to that competition.
Okay. I'm just looking. I think you can move on. Ted, I will watch the Q&A again and circle back if there's other questions.
Thank you, Christy. So moving forward to 2024, having reviewed the first quarter financial statements, I can report that OAA finances are tracking normally with continued oversight from management and from council. The 2024 operating budget was established to support a hybrid approach to operations, administration, and governance. The OAA's return to work policy allows for remote work, as well as for virtual meetings, including those for council and committee meetings where warranted. This approach aligns with the OAA's commitment to address climate action, including looking at ways in which we can collectively reduce our carbon footprint. Now, specific items related to the 2024 budget include 140,000 related to IT systems optimizations, 104,000 earmarked for 2024 with respect to the landscape design competition proper. That is the actual functioning of the competition itself. I'll discuss the balance of funding for this project in a moment. In regard to the reserve funds discussed earlier, the Finance and Audit Committee has also presented a 3-year plan to Council as of November 2023 to balance 3 priorities that have been collectively identified. One being the continuing alignment of reserve amounts with the policies as I reviewed. The second is allocating the funds for the landscape competition. And the third is to look at funds accumulated to be able to apply in 2026, potentially a lump sum payment on the principal of the existing mortgage. The 3-year plan includes the following actions related to the reserves. The legal reserve is maintained. The major capital reserve continues to be aligned with the building reserve fund study to be increased up to 33.2 million as of 2026. That follows directly with the recommendations from the study. And then the operating reserve increased to 3.6 million by 2026. The landscape competition funding is allocated as follows. So for 2024, 104,000 related to the actual competition. 2025 will be the first portion of work related to the actual project at 1.5 million, and then 2026 for the remainder at 0.5 million. In addition, the history of annual OAA budget surpluses are projected to make available in the order of $1 million to apply to the current mortgage principal in 2026, when the current interest rate of 2.18% expires. This is intended to enable monthly payments to continue to be equivalent to that current rate. It is expected that the new rate will be in the order of 5%. The reallocation of funds from unrestricted funds specifically assigned to the specifically assigned reserves aligns with the Canada Revenue Agency's guidance. Following is a summary from this guidance as shared by our auditor through the published document they have prepared, Planning Ahead, Improving Financial Health with Reserve Planning. The CRA basically judges every situation, every organization on its unique merits. A prudent nonprofit will manage any accumulated surplus with documented intentionality to be able to explain to its members of the CRA why it has targeted to hold or accumulate certain balances. So we are governed by that as well. This concludes my presentation. Thanks for your patience and attention, and I'd ask Christy if there's any other questions.
Thanks, Ted. I am just reading here. I have another question about perhaps, not sure whether it's a question or comment from Constantine Radef, how our clients will react if we tell them that we have to increase our fees for services also with 4%. Will this be reflected in the OAA fee guide or not? Just for clarity, the OAA subscribes or endorses the REIC fee guide, which is a guide that is put out by the Royal Architectural Institute of Canada, the OAA fee guide. we don't have a fee guide ourselves, but I'll pass that question along to you, Ted, unless you would like to provide any other comment on that question.
I don't think so. I mean, I think the previous comment with respect to the deliberations that we do as a finance and audit committee relative to CPI and the other parameters that I previously mentioned, that contextualizes it for us. So I would hope that would be able to be passed along.
Okay. Another question from member Philip Goodfellow. Are we financially committed to executing the landscape competition as a project?
The council has approved the competition.
Okay.
That's as of the fall of last year.
Right. Thank you, Ted. And I think there was another question about frankly, surveying the membership about it. But as Ted said, the council has rendered a decision on that at the end of last year. Okay. I'm not seeing anything else here. I think we can move on.
Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Debra Krakow. I'm the chair of Pro-Demnity's board of directors, and I'm very pleased to be here today. Our mandate as a board and leadership team is to ensure that your program of professional liability insurance remains robust and protective. And being reliably protective has been our theme throughout the year, and it's also the theme of our annual update. So today I'm just going to fill you in on some of the highlights of 2023, which was a very full, proactive, and productive year. So let's start with client centricity. We have been building a vast body of knowledge, which is accessible through our website. We have all kinds of articles on managing risks in your practice, on professional liability insurance, and other topics which can help you as you engage with Pro-Demnity and as you work through your projects. There's a monthly straight line bulletin, which we encourage you to subscribe to, and also to encourage other members of your team and your office to subscribe to, which is very informative and engaging. We have a Speak with an Expert program where you can book an appointment online to get personalized individual risk advice and risk management consultation with one of our architects on staff. And we make presentations both at the OAA conference, as well as at universities and society visits throughout the year, where we also really solicit feedback. So we're always looking for feedback through speaking with architects in small, medium, and large practices, because we know that the better we can understand your needs, the better equipped we'll be to serve you. So client centricity is all about making you, our policyholders, the center of our focus of everything that we do. In terms of strengthening our operations, we've had two major initiatives, and one is our new claims management system, the other is our new legal management system. So in claims management, we're focusing on improving our response time and in making sure that we have more continuous communication with a policyholder who's facing a claim. We know this can be an anxiety-ridden time, and you need frequent updates on the status of your claim. Through this new system, we're also collecting more data, which is going to help us over time to understand what gives rise to claims and how to better manage the claims defense process. The legal management system is very important because about 2/3 of the cost of defending a claim are typically spent on legal fees as opposed to damages awards. So if we can curtail and manage the legal costs, we can significantly reduce our overall operating costs. And so we're doing this by developing an in-house legal team. So we have a team of in-house lawyers. We have external lawyers as well, and we have a triage process where using our internal architects and our internal lawyers, we assess each and every claim to determine whether it's going to be handled in-house or externally. This year, we had our first ever legal panel conference where we brought in our external legal counsel to meet with our internal counsel and claims teams and share knowledge about best practices and how we're managing claims to really make sure that we're doing the best that we can going forward. You can rest assured when you have a claim that our internal team of architects are involved in every case, and they're providing information to our lawyers to strengthen our ability to defend the claimant. Over the next few years, we're going to be continuing to invest in technology with respect to claims and legal to really improve your online experience with us and make it more seamless and easy to do business with Pro-Demnity. Our team at Pro-Demnity is always ready to help you. Since COVID, we've continued to work in a hybrid model, but whether our staff are at home or in the office, they're always available and they're always working very collaboratively. We foster an environment that encourages employees to really engage and to rise to the best of their abilities. We very much strive to have an environment where employees want to come to work because we know that an engaged team serves our clients better. I'd like to take a moment to thank our team at Pro-Demnity, the staff and management, for their continued dedication to serving our clients and for their values of trust, accountability, innovation, and collaboration. So Pro-Demnity operates sort of like a mutual where we put the interests of our policyholders, which are architectural practices, first. And I won't spend a lot of time on going through our financial results, but some of the basic metrics are on this slide. So we focus on our year-over-year growth, our total number of claims that have been opened and closed, our net profit after tax, and our MCT ratio. And I do want to talk a little bit about the MCT, which stands for Minimum Capital Test. So insurance is very highly regulated, and our regulator in particular wants to make sure that we have the financial strength to meet our policy liabilities. So minimum capital test is a ratio of the capital available to the total policy liabilities. And I'm happy to report that in 2023, we have consistently kept our MCT within a healthy range. If you're interested in the details of our finances, how we spend and invest the money that we get from your premiums, the key metrics that we focus on to ensure that we're remaining financially robust and sustainable, and also all of the factors that go into determining the annual rate increases. I really encourage you to download our 2023 annual update, which explains all of these things very well, I think, and very thoroughly. So it's been a solid financial year for us at Pro-Demnity. We're confident moving forward. So once again, thank you very much for the opportunity to share the highlights of a successful year with you. And I encourage you to reach out should you have any questions or concerns. Thanks.
Thank you, Debra. I think at this point, we're going to swing back to President Vilardi to take a few moments to provide an update on the OAA's 5-year strategic plan and the OAA's accomplishments and ongoing activities. Seth, back to you.
Great, thanks, Christy. This is the part of the AGM where I get a chance to address those in the profession. So first, I want to take this opportunity to thank you all again for participating today. Since the COVID pandemic pushed us to pivot into an in-person, from an in-person meeting at conference to a virtual event, we had received feedback suggesting most of you actually preferred this way. We're happy to keep the annual general meeting of members online. We think it improves our accessibility and inclusiveness and helps ensure people can attend from across the province. Earlier today, I mentioned our 5-year strategic plan. And so I'm now going to take a few moments to look at the plan and its pillars in a little more detail and provide insight into some of the specific activities and initiatives this year. So the strategic plan's first pillar is to bring the OA's regulatory framework into alignment with current legal principles for professional regulators. It is also to modernize our legislative and governing documents and ensure we continue to serve and protect the public interest. This involves a range of activities, including complaints and discipline, act enforcement, and licensing. For today, I want to focus on two particularly significant matters: amendments to the government regulation that have changed the requirements for license, and the modernization of the Architects Act and amended Regulation 27 that permits limited licenses. Let's start with licensure requirements. Recent amendments to the Fair Access to Regulated Professionals and Compulsory Trades Act, otherwise known as FARPACTA, meant that the OAA had to revise registration practices. More specifically, we could no longer require Canadian experience without also accepting an alternative. Notwithstanding that FARPACTA requirement to have an alternative to direct Canadian work experience, it had long been the OA's position that local Ontario practice knowledge is critical to public health and safety, as well as to the provision of competent architectural services in our province. Therefore, we have established a method to assess the architectural competencies specific to Ontario practice and an alternative to acquiring knowledge of practice in Canada prior to licensure, with 2024 being the transition year for those in the Internship in Architecture program, or the IAP. All intern architects are still required to complete at least 3,720 hours of architectural experience. If fewer than 940 hours of that experience is obtained on projects within Canada while in the IAP, the intern architect must successfully complete a Practice of Architecture in Canada online course offered by the Regulatory Organizations of Architecture in Canada. As well, all intern architects must complete an outcomes-based competency self-assessment to demonstrate Ontario practice knowledge prior to application for license. There is, of course, a lot more information being shared on the OAA website and in the regulatory bulletin emails, but I do want to say that I'm so proud about the work done by Council, working in tandem with our government partners to come up with this solution. The result in the registration process that is more equitable, efficient, inclusive, and transparent, while keeping the OA's obligations to public interest at the forefront. And while we're talking about intern architects and becoming licensed, I want to also take the opportunity to remind OAA members that you are strongly encouraged to add your name to the online mentor directory, which was launched last year. There is a URL in the chat for you to learn more about the platform that allows interns to search for mentors based on not only on the practice-based information, but also on other types of identity criteria. And if you're an OAA intern architect or student associate joining us today, I'm also hoping you'll check out the directory if you need help finding a mentor. Staying under the regulatory leadership banner, I want to disclose another important development over the last year or so and update you all on where we're at now. Last May, the outcome of a court application advanced by the Association of Architectural Technologists of Ontario meant the pausing of the OA's technology program and the voiding of the licensed technologist OA licenses and certificates of practice. The impact on these former licensed technologist OA members was immediate and, as you can imagine, critical. It was important to note that there was never any risk to the public inherent in the court order. The education and competencies of these individuals affected was not in question. What was at the issue was that the OA's use of a policy rather than a regulation to grant these CFPs and licenses. Again, you can read more about this on the OA's website. Throughout 2023, the OAA worked with its partners in the provincial government to find a path forward. Then in December, amendments eventually had allowed the association to issue limited licenses, effectively bringing back the technology program, were introduced at Legislative Assembly. This Schedule 1 of Bill 157, the Enhancing Access to Justice Act 2023, was subsequently referred to the province's Government Standing Committee on Justice Policy. The committee held public hearings in February, where I had the honor of appearing in person before the group to speak on our support of the changes to the Architects Act. Previously, the OAA had issued written submissions to the committee, as well as detailed briefing notes to all MPPs, keeping with the ongoing efforts to ensure decision makers have accurate information. Again, you can find all of this information on the OAA website. Shortly after the hearings, the bill successfully underwent third reading and has now passed into law. The OAA is working closely with the Ministry of the Attorney General to obtain the necessary amendments to Regulation 27 and eventually proceed towards issuing of limited licenses and restarting of the OAA technology program. We are really excited to advance this evolution in the practice of architecture in Ontario and reestablish the recognition of a paraprofession licensed by the OAA in the service and protection of the public interest. Returning to our strategic plan, the next pillar is member competency. This involves ensuring the continued and current professional skill sets of OAA licensed members, as well as maintain our leadership role in the built environment while being accountable to the public interest. Perhaps one of the biggest components of this is the OAA's mandatory continuing education program, which is, of course, a requirement for all licensed members. The current 2-year cycle ends on June 30th, a little more than 2 months away. So this is a good time to remind you that before then, you are responsible for self-reporting all content activities to fulfill your structured and unstructured learning hours to your transcript, as well as the current cycle's separate climate action requirement. If you're looking for more educational opportunities, the OAA has a weekly webinar series and also shares third-party sessions on the website. As well, there's our conference coming up in Niagara Falls, which offers up to 21 structured hours. I also want to remind you that the OAA offers all its licensed members free access to CSA standards cited in the building code. And speaking about the OBC, the OAA continues to liaise with the government and building officials partners on the revised rollout to ensure our members will have access to the latest information. The next pillar calls on enhancing our government and operational practices to ensure we have been effective, inclusive, resilient, and a transparent organization. The OAA has more than 6,000 members and status holders, including intern architects, retired members, and student associates. As well, there are 13 active committees, governed by a council of 19 that meets 7 or 8 times a year, and our association staff of 36. The annual report covers a lot of changes over the last year, including new staff, enhanced IT security, and internal best practices related to visual identity and accessibility. But I want to talk a little bit more about another initiative we have related to our headquarters building in Toronto. The OAA has launched a JURD, anonymous landscape design competition to revitalize its headquarters, with final submissions due next month. In addition to showcasing design excellence, we asked competitors to create a welcoming arrival experience, enhance the building, incorporate a public art, and recognize the role of sustainability and water use in the health of the environment, acknowledge the Don River ravine context, and consider the importance of reconciliation. Eligible teams are led by a licensed member of the OAA or a full member of the Ontario Association of Landscape Architects, and must include an OALA landscape architect and a civil engineer. Again, you can learn more about the competition, including the jury, prizes, scope, and timelines on the OAA website. We'll also be sharing the anonymous submissions at a special Doors Open event at our building next month. If you're in the area and haven't been to the OAA headquarters recently, I invite you to come by and learn more about both the landscape design competition and our building itself, which was transformed through our Renew and Refresh campaign to achieve zero net carbon performance. And speaking on buildings and climate action, we're continuing to ask practices to share their case studies on our website. There's a link provided in the chat to learn more. Climate resources continue to be an important focus of the OAA, and members can access free total energy use calculators on the OAA's website. Many of the entrants in our biennial Design Excellence Awards program to calculate their own projects' impacts use those very same tools. If you haven't heard the news yet, the OAA was very proud to reveal 10 winners last week. The final pillar calls for advancing the public's understanding and recognition that architecture is integral to the quality of life and well-being of our society. And public can mean everyone from clients and government to teachers and students to other players in the design and construction realm. Late last year, we developed a public outreach plan to refine our audiences, our messaging, and communications channels. I mentioned Doors Open, and there are other ways the OAA connects with the public, including our YouTube videos and Instagram stories, our People's Choice Design Excellence Award program, now open for voting, and our podcast series, which just had a new episode released about designing homes for orangutans. We also have a very successful public awareness sponsorship program where the OAA helps to support our groups raising awareness or appreciation about architecture. The government represents another public audience for the OAA. In addition to numerous submissions and correspondence on topics ranging from code changes to housing affordability, we have our annual Queen's Parks Picks program, where MPPs name their favorite buildings in their ridings. Building these connections have strengthened our relationships. I've been able to reach out directly to a number of provincial politicians from all parties, having one-on-one meetings to discuss issues of importance to the profession and to the public. We also continue to work very closely with our 14 local architectural societies embedded in the communities across Ontario, from Thunder Bay to Toronto to the Ottawa region, and of course down here in Windsor, providing insight to the diverse needs and challenges faced by both our members and the broader public. They have been invaluable in supporting and furthering the OAA's secondary object to promote the public appreciation of architecture. Finally, I want to remind you of the registration is open for the 2024 OAA conference, which takes place next month at the Niagara Falls Convention Center. We kicked things off a couple weeks ago with a virtual keynote where I had the pleasure of introducing international architect Vishaan Chakrabarti, which I believe is currently available on the OAA's YouTube channel if you missed it live. The OAA will have shuttle buses between Toronto and Niagara for the event, and this year's conference has a housing theme that is particularly relevant. It includes numerous special events, networking opportunities, award ceremonies, recreational tours, and approximately 75 experiential learning and classroom content sessions. You can look at the full lineup on the OAA's website, and I encourage you to register soon to ensure your spot. Regarding the conference housing theme, the OAA has continued to believe architects can play an important role in finding new approaches to deal with our current affordability crisis. We have commissioned studies supporting our belief through density increases, important conversations, and better processes are key. On a personal note, I've seen some exclude architects from these conversations, or worse, point fingers and blame at us. As you know, I have a letter to the editor and the latest Canadian architect about this very issue. I look forward to seeing other discussions coming out on the conference as well. My time is ending, so I'll end this address by reiterating my earlier encouragement to consider running in the upcoming council elections for responding to the call for committees and volunteers, which will be announced this summer. You can also connect with your local society to see how you can become more involved in that society. My genuine thanks for taking time to be here to all of you today. I hope you will continue to think about your relationship with not only the wider profession, but also your regulating association. I hope to see everyone in Niagara Falls for the conference. So at this point in the meeting, we would like to provide you with an opportunity to offer council any additional comment or feedback. If you wish to do so, please ask your question in the Ask a Question function. We will begin addressing questions as they are raised. If you have more questions than time allows, we'll be responding with a post-meeting report citing these questions and preparing responses. Please note that the questions of similar nature will be grouped together and responded to in a single address.
Thanks, Seth. I do have a number of questions in the Q&A, so maybe we'll get started. We do have about a little less than 10 minutes or so. So let's start. I have a question from James Chapman, and I'm going to read it. It says the new building code was just released starting in 2025. It's now the National Building Code, 800 pages of supplemental comments, clauses. This will be an impossible document for both architects and building officials to navigate, will lead to countless errors, omissions, as well as an increase in disputes between architects and reviewers. Question, what is the OAA going to do to address this with the Ontario government? Seth, do you want to take that and talk about some of the activities that we've been doing to talk about the new code?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've known this has been coming out for some time, obviously. You know, we belong to an organization, as I mentioned before, the Engineers, Architects, and Building Officials of Ontario, EBO. And that's been a topic of a discussion across the table from these three organizations. We've all honestly been trying to manage and understand what was coming. Some might think that building officials or municipalities are getting information in advance, but actually they're getting it. We're all getting it at the same time from Ontario, so we're all dealing with the same challenges. So I think the issue here is that we're all in it together. Building officials, architects, engineers, we're all getting the information at the same time, and the idea is to kind of work through and strategize as a group. We've already been talking with EBO about joint sessions with building officials as well as architects and engineers. Obviously, the OAA is going to be looking to experts in the field to run webinar series and allow architects to have that information. We know that there's a transition period that's going to be taking place, obviously. And I got the alert from Code News, I think at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock yesterday afternoon of the new format, which kind of surprised me a little bit too. So obviously as a president and as an architect, I'm looking at it for the first time, just like everybody else. I think, rest assured that the OAA has this as a really high priority. We've again been looking at options and ways to ally with other organizations because we knew it was coming, and we will continue to do that and to provide support to our membership and obviously liaise with government and municipalities as much as we can. But again, at this stage, the government has done what it's going to do. The building code is out. Its intent is to harmonize as much with the National Building Code as possible. And in that, Ontario always has to be a little bit different. So they've got their amendments. And we're going to work through that and find the best way to get our projects built in the future, like we've always done. In 2012, we had a big change. It's 2024, so we'll have to have another big change. And I'm sure with everybody's ability and the continuing education sessions that the OAA offers, we'll be able to move through and transition to that as we have in the past, probably stronger and more resilient profession for that.
Great, thanks, Seth. I'm not sure if you mentioned it. There is a session at conference in Niagara that will be on just a review of the code changes, just a first step in terms of providing some education. So thank you for that. Another question from Rafid Cousteau. What is the status of the court order for 150 practices? Obviously, OAA technologists. Question about how will that affect OAA financially? Please verify. I think if I could set, the quick answer to that is if you go to the financial statements, note 9 will refers to the impact of that in terms of the financial impact in the OAA. So I think that's fairly clear and has provided a summary of where we're at in terms of restarting the program and what happened with the Bill 157 and Schedule 1. So we're working towards that restart of the program. Hopefully as soon as possible. So I think unless there was something you wanted to add to that, I think that's the best source of information regarding financial impact.
Yeah, and again, as an OAA councillor, and I'm sure I speak on behalf of administration, it's been a top priority for us since this issue arose. And as I noted in my address, we've put all hands on deck to move this forward as quickly as possible. The Ministry of Attorney General has been a good partner with us in moving this forward. And so we're really happy with the pace that that's gotten to. And so again, we're going to continue to push forward to get this done.
Great, thanks, Seth. Another question from member Yvonne Ip. She says, following on the decision to not ask the membership about the landscaping competition costs, what proposed expenditures or amounts thereof are required to have membership approval? If I could just offer one, just from an operations and administrative perspective, obviously the annual operating budget and capital budget are the responsibility of the Governing Council to set. So that is their purview, again, in the governance perspective, and certainly the AGM members through the AGM are subject to the bylaw changes and approving the bylaw changes. So I just wanted, from an operational perspective, that's how that works in terms of approving the annual capital budget and operating budget. But I'll pass it over to you as well, Seth.
Yeah, and I would add that the renewal and refresh of the building and site has been something that's been on the books for many, many years. Obviously, we went through a major renovation of the building to retrofit it to be net zero carbon, which has resulted in fact, making us more energy efficient. This was a continuation of that initial project. I can suggest too that the competition is not just a sort of an aesthetic enhancement, but there are very concrete changes, renovations that we needed to make to the site that resulted probably in close to $1 million just relative to rejuvenating sidewalks and curbs and asphalt and a lot of exterior features. If any of you have been to the OAA website, you'll know it's a very challenging site. I mean, it's there's a lot of inclines, and we want to make sure that it's accessible to individuals of the public, obviously, because we want to be accessible. And so it's important that we address all those issues. And then because we had this opportunity and we already needed to spend money to enhance and basically renovate these spaces, it seemed like a good opportunity to also engage with the public with a design competition, as well as our members in a design competition to help regenerate the site and also look at Indigenous reconciliation components, because again, it's been one of our governing themes at the OAA, and we wanted to ensure that we were addressing that as well. So again, for some people that might suggest that it's not purely an aesthetic enhancement, there are really concrete, functional, operational items that we needed to attend to that have been delayed over many years, and we're going to get to them now, and also take this opportunity to be very efficient in the way that we use our funds to do more than one thing at the same time. And again, I can assure you that council has looked at this very closely. We've debated this probably over a couple of years now, and we got to this point, and we're very happy with the process moving forward, and that we can engage with the industry as well as our members to continue to enhance and to have the building be a recognition of the things that architects do, and the position and the philosophy of the association to be progressive and support climate action, support equality, diversity, inclusion, support Indigenous reconciliation. And these are all key elements of the work that we're doing.
Great. Thank you, Seth. I'll put this in the context of positive feedback. John Doris has just had put a note in saying, I hope the Pro-Demnity webinars are going to continue. So comment feedback back to Pro-Demnity. Thank you. Question from John Romanoff. John writes, with the tech program now in the process of being reinstated, what is the status of the review processes that were underway prior to the court challenge, scope of practice, voting rights, membership, legislative committees? So I'll toss that over to you, Seth. Only thing I would clarify, I mean, we still have work underway that is happening with the regulation amendments. So until that is completed and those reg amendments are sitting with government now, we can't flip the switch yet. So that's just a clarification on where we're at in terms of restarting the program.
Right. And I would say the intent is to reestablish the program exactly the way it was before the issue happened. So we're going to start from that point. So whatever were the requirements or the rights of these individuals will be reestablished in the same manner. And then once that's done, we can look to the future, potentially if there's any changes. But the intent right now is to reestablish the exact same program in the exact same way with essentially the exact same parameters. That was the agreement that we made with the ministry in order to work as efficiently to reestablish the program.
Okay, thank you. I have another question from Rafid Cousteau, following on the OAA letter, President's letter to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing about the qualifications of BCIN holders. OAA did not release yet the response of the ministry to the letter. Did the ministry ignore the letter? I believe Rafid is. I'm not sure exactly which letter Rafid is referring to. There was. Certainly, there was a letter that we sent following the court action regarding BCIN holders, and those individuals having a BCIN designation number. No, we did not respond. We did not get a response to that. But I'm not quite sure. I'd have to go back and look at what the February 6th letter was.
We have continued to follow up with them, and I know, for certain that we've done that, and Christy personally has done that. Again, I mean, it's a government agency, and so we all know how those agencies work, and so we've continued to persevere through that process. But certainly our main goal was to reestablish the program and to get the limited license provision in the Act, and we've gone ahead and done that, and that's a better opportunity for these individuals. Certainly BCIN numbers an important element that they can continue to work from, but our goal as our regulator was to reestablish the limited license and to get the reg changes that we need to bring that program back online.
Great. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think that's the end of the question set. So I think and good timing. We're at 2:35, so I
35.
think,
hopefully enough people hung on. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll send it back over to you, Seth, to close out the meeting.
Great. Thank you very much, Christy. So we're going to ask for a motion to adjourn today's meeting, and Christy, I don't have anybody who's pre-motion those, so maybe I'll pick on members of council that are present, and maybe I'll ask one of our vice presidents, Susan Spiegel, and then our seconder would be one of our other vice presidents, Christiana Schumann, to second that motion.
That would be fine.
And then I'd again like to call for that vote.
Actually, I'm not sure if Sherry had set it up as a vote or not.
Okay, well, I'm sure everybody's anxious to get on with their day. So I'll just like to note that this meeting is now adjourned, and I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today at the OAA's annual AGM. I want to wish everybody a wonderful day as we move close to today's meeting. As we close today's meeting, I want to once again draw your attention to recognize all of our newly licensed members. But just before we do, if you haven't already done so, please take the time to register for this year's conference, Housing Pushing the Envelope. I'm really looking forward to seeing everybody in person in Niagara. It's going to be a great event. We've got a lot of great initiatives, Con Ed sessions, and social gatherings, and should be a great opportunity to reconnect with everybody. So please stay connected for a few more minutes to see the names of the newly licensed architects, and I will wish you a good day. Thanks.